Angelville flashbacks, Cassidy gets Dennis a dog, and Hitler doesn't get his cake.
I was here first.
Apologies.
Hey guys, I'm back again as promised, breaking down Preacher Season 2, Episode 11. This episode is titled Backdoors, and boy, there sure were a lot of backdoors in the episode. You know what I mean when I say that. Also, a ton of comic book references. So just be warned, there are spoilers ahead. Before we get started, quickly subscribe so that you don't miss any of our Preacher Season 2 coverage, as well as Twin Peaks, Rick and Morty, Game of Thrones, and much more. And remember, if I miss anything, or you have any questions, or you just want to say hi, hit me up in the comments or on Twitter at RyanEricP. Thanks for watching, guys. Let's start with the awesome cold open in this episode. For those of you that didn't read the comics, it's a flashback to Jesse's childhood when he was in Angelville. It took some time, but we're finally getting some details about his dark past in the TV show. In the books, Jesse's grandmother, Marie Leangel, repeatedly used this type of punishment when dealing with Jesse. He spent weeks and weeks at a time inside the coffin at the bottom of the swamp until he learned his lesson. As we find out later in the episode, this particular punishment came from Jesse refusing to renounce the last name of Custer. I don't want to give any more comic book spoilers away, but I just hope we get more of this memorable Angelville story arc in Season 3, with the epic reunion between Jesse and his extended family. Back in the present day, Tulip confronted Jesse about his big lie, when he told her that he sent the Saint of Killers to hell. Well, he didn't. He fittingly put him at the bottom of the swamp, something that he's awfully familiar with.
Why didn't you send him to hell?
I couldn't do that to another soul.
The real reason here is most likely because the Saint has 1% of Jesse's soul, but Tulip also doesn't need to know that, right? Problem is, the Saint of Killers is free again. Tulip was already struggling with some Saint PTSD, but now she has to be terrified. So who's behind all of this? Yep, you guessed it, Grail Industries. Of course, they planned for Tulip to find the Saint's weapons in the bathroom and the empty truck in the swamp. Star wants to divide Jesse, Tulip, and Cassidy and make Jesse agree to replace the Messiah. There's another hysterical exchange here regarding Hoover accidentally sending Star the male prostitutes from last episode.
I apologize. Sir, I assumed that when you requested prostitutes, that... Should I get you a refund?
You're missing the point, Hoover.
They're tart thin, sir.
Over at Dennis's house, Team Preacher is as dysfunctional as ever after Jesse dismisses his own plan for a vacation. But amongst the yelling and dog barks, yes, Cassidy got his son a dog, Jesse has an epiphany. God has been hiding under his nose this whole time.
Maybe it is about the dog.
Is that who we're talking about? Huh? What?
Gotta go.
That's right, he was in the Dalmatian suit in the back room of that New Orleans bar we saw in episode 3. When he goes back a second time, God is nowhere to be found. So Jesse might have made strides in his search for God, but it's come at a cost with his friends. They don't want to even help him anymore, and the Grail's plan to divide them is working. Back at the Grail's New Orleans office, we learn that heaven has a backup system for everyone's prayers because God can't possibly hear them all. Of course, Herr Star has acquired hours and hours and hours of Jesse's own prayers and believes that he wants forgiveness for one in particular.
Thank you, God, for killing my father and bringing me home.
Star tries to convince Jesse that the only way for him to be forgiven for these sins and to save his own soul is by making a grand gesture like taking over as the Messiah. Jesse doesn't buy it and commands Star to shove every inch of the recordings up his own ass. Much like in the comics, I continue to enjoy how literal the commands of Genesis are taken. So what's going on in hell? Well, they're still trying to figure out who doesn't belong down there, but we all know it's Eugene. Ultimately, Hitler convinces Eugene that he needs to escape with him instead. But prior to this, we get a glimpse of Hitler's worst memory ever. It involved Hitler getting rejected by the gay gallery owner, failing to intervene with violent communists, getting dumped by his girlfriend, and then being told a Jewish customer was given the last plum cake despite him being the first to order it. No, the plum cake didn't start World War II, but it represented something much more to Hitler.
That was the day. The last day. I was good. That was the moment I lost myself.
So is Hitler trying to redeem himself, or is he still as horrible as we all would guess? I believe the latter, in that he shouldn't be trusted by Eugene at all. We'll have to wait and see how it all pans out as the season comes to an end. And what about Tulip? Her number one priority is getting rid of the Saint of Killers' weapons. She decides to try to melt them. That's not gonna happen. In the books, the Saint's magical Walker Colts were forged from the Angel of Death's sword, and no one but the Saint can use them, so it makes sense why Tulip can't get the bullets out or fire off a round. A big difference here is that Tulip would have seen the souls of the Saint's victims when she held the weapons, but that doesn't seem to be the case in the TV show. As it turns out, even 4,000 degrees won't melt these things. How about some other quick observations from this episode? After Tulip left the house, Dennis approaches Cassidy about his feelings for her.
Saute là, alors.
So take her.
What?
Quoi?
Saute là.
Take her.
C'est comme ça qu'on fait chez nous, non?
It's what we do.
He can clearly tell that Cassidy wants her. Remember, in the comics, these two shared a very, very dark relationship at one point. It seems like we might be headed there in the TV show as well. Gotta love the tagline at Myron's Smelt Shop. You dealt it, we smelt it. How about that photo of Tom Brady during the Do You Belong in Hell test? That makes 2 Super Bowl references this season after that Atlanta Falcons t-shirt we saw back a few episodes. Some more backdoors as Hitler pulls out a key to his room from his backside. Hysterically, Tulip tries to mail the Saint of Killers' weapons to Brazil. There's no way in hell those make it to Rio. And one last thing to note at the end of the episode. Jesse has to use Genesis multiple times in order to get out of the Grail headquarters.
Let me out.
Let me out.
Did Star have his staff's souls removed in order to avoid them being commanded by Jesse? Does Genesis lose some sort of power if the host has an incomplete soul? Or is Jesse simply losing conviction in himself after reliving all the horrible things he's done in his life? Let me know what you guys think. The final scene of the episode involves the Saint, and it appears that Hoover has made a deal with him to go after Jesse again. Did Hoover take back the 1% of Jesse's soul that the Saint had acquired so that he'll again be immune to Genesis? Whatever the case is, it's bad news for Team Preacher because the Saint is back next episode.
The Messiah? Come on, that's a joke, right?
Jesse, what do you need us for?
You should consider our offer.
What more do you have to lose?
God is gone. Keep moving. Time to get on your